A little over 15 miles northwest of Fort Wayne lies the quiet little town of Churubusco, Indiana, with a population of roughly 1,800. Or maybe it's 1,801, because under the surface of Fulk Lake, there's said to reside a reptile so intimidating, so fearsome that...
Is this guy, Oscar. In 1949, two guys from Churubusco were out by the nearby Fulk Lake, where they spotted this creature that would turn the whole town on its head. On its shell? Is that anything? This sighting would kick off one of the most notorious turtle hunts in history. So we are up in Churubusco to get a look at the legend behind this terrifying terrapin. Today on Indi Android.
There's some variation in the story as to how the Beast of Busco was first spotted.
Well, from what I've heard, the story that's been floating around my family is that two guys were on Fulk Lake fishing. One said, "Oh my goodness, look at this turtle," and the other guy said, "No, it's over here," and that's the story that I heard.
Others, like Miles Wilson, have been told it was a group of men working on a nearby roof who saw it in the lake, but there's a reason for that.
My great-grandfather was one of the three men who saw the turtle. It's funny to hear all the different people tell their side of the story or what they believe to have happened.
However it appeared, one thing's certain: it was big. Some said the size of a car's roof, or the head the size of a baby.
They said it was as big as a kitchen table, is what it was. And and at that period of time, I laugh because our kitchen table isn't all that big.
There's also the chance that 1949 wasn't the first time it was spotted.
Something was spotted in 1898 at that lake, and then again in 1913. But March of 1949 is when it all began. And it must have been a very slow news week because all kinds of news is caught up with it.
Jones and Matthews' family histories with the town go way back to its founding in the 1830s. And Jones has another connection to the beast. He was around 10 years old during the hunt. It didn't take long for the men's sighting to turn into a town-wide search of Fulk Lake. And not long after that, the national media started paying attention.
After it was picked up by the Associated Press, I know that they had done a story about it shortly after the hunt began in 1949. It was picked up by the Journal-Gazette, Fort Wayne's newspaper, and then after that it was picked up by the Associated Press. So it went into the Chicago Tribune. I know that it was in the LA Times and New York Times. I think that's when it really took off, is when AP got a hold of it.
It was world news. At that point in time, if you went anywhere in the world and said you were from Churubusco, people knew exactly where you were talking about because it was our version of the Loch Ness Monster.
A lot of the local businesses would run turtle soup and different things like that.
Of course, anything that's going to help a small town, people buying gas and food and all that, excites the town a little bit, of course.
It was a boon to the town, actually.
And who knew where Churubusco was? After that happened, you could travel about any place in the United States, and if you said you're from Churubusco, Indiana, well, tell us about the big turtle.
The turtle was given the nickname Oscar, after one of the lake's old owners, Oscar Fulk. And soon, all eyes were on Churubusco, and the town was pulling out all the stops to find the beast.
During the course of trying to capture it, it broke out of a net, which we still have the net, and it broke out of a trap, a big round trap they made out of chicken wire. They got a hold of it with a grappling hook at one time, and it tipped the boat like this, so they let it go. I knew the local newspaper gentleman, his name was Jim Kirtley, and he swore that he saw it and got a picture of it, but for some reason or other the picture never developed. So
kind of like
we're not sure about that one. And Jim was a pretty honest guy, and I think he actually did see a very large turtle.
And it's probably a good thing he did elude them, really, because as the years went on, the turtle got bigger too.
And at one point, searchers even brought in a female turtle to try and lure Oscar out of hiding. The search went on for about 6 months before the hunters ran out of steam and money. In the fall of 1949, one last-ditch effort was made to drain Fulk Lake, but to no avail. And draining the lake eventually led to the lake's then-owner, Gail Harris, going bankrupt. Most of Churubusco moved on. Oscar was now stitched into the town's history as a fun memory that put it on the map. But for Wilson's family, the beast was not something they looked back on fondly, at least for a long time.
It was somewhat of an embarrassment to the family with what had happened that we didn't talk about Churubusco. When the whole thing went down, and them not finding the turtle ultimately, and it leading to Gail Harris's death. A lot of people feel in our family that he, trying to prove that, stressed himself out so much that that's what led to his death, that Grandpa chose not to settle in Churubusco, but instead in Wells County. My great-grandfather would have never had lied about this. His integrity was too big for that, and he would have never let Gail Harris do what he did, you know, losing everything looking for this turtle, if it wasn't true. It was really kind of a black mark on us as a family because it wasn't found, so the family was looked at as liars.
Another descendant and cousin to Wilson is even working on a book to tell the family side of the story. But this many years removed from the hunt, Wilson says it's water under the bridge.
It is what it is. It's a part of history, and whatever it turned out to be, it doesn't matter to me. It's just cool that our family's associated to something in the history of this town or just even the state.
It didn't take long for the town's love of Oscar to translate to branding and its longtime moniker.
I've always known Churubusco as Turtletown, USA.
And just a year after the hunt, the yearly summer festival Turtle Days was born.
It's a big fair at our park. We have rides, music, entertainment, junk food alley. We have turtles that come from all over. We actually had somebody last year that came from New Jersey. They had seen the Turtle Days website, and she had a pet turtle, and that's where they were spending their vacation, was Churubusco, Indiana, to do the turtle race.
And they have turtle races, which I was responsible for starting those in 1968, I believe it was.
For 7 decades, the event has been a love letter to the local urban legend and a reason to wonder if Oscar's still out there.
As far as we know, he's still there.
Of course I believe Oscar's out there. I would not be a Busconian if I didn't think Oscar was out there somewhere.
The town of Churubusco may not have tracked down its beast or held him in the town center or made buckets of turtle soup or even have him settle down with a nice turtle gal. But what they did do is distill what makes cryptids so fascinating. They intrigue us, they mystify us, they play in this glorious gray area of what if. There may not be a giant sloth roaming the forest or mud mermaids in the Ohio River, but what if there are? And hey, even if you don't find that giant turtle in the lake, don't you want to look?